The clock is ticking for U.S. streaming giant Paramount Skydance. It is racing to outbid Netflix in a takeover battle for Warner Brothers Discovery. Joining us now to talk all about that and break it all down is Seth Schachter. He's a digital business executive and the managing director of consulting services service Strat Americas. Great to see you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good to be here, Elaine.
Seth, Netflix, as you know, has given Paramount a limited waiver to continue talks with Warner Brothers Discovery. How unusual is this? And does it suggest that Netflix still believes that it has the strongest hand in this bidding war?
I mean, it's not that unusual. I mean, something similar actually happened when Fox went into Disney with a competitive studio that kind of wanted to shake things up and drive up prices and maybe even harm their competitor. But you know, it's a legacy studio here. It's one of our oldest and most important, and there's a very big question kind of overhanging the town, which is how do you reinvent a studio so that it's competitive and in the right shape for the next century? And I don't think anyone's answered that precisely yet, but you know, there's clearly two willing buyers here, and you know, David Ellison, backed by his father and the folks at Paramount, I think really seriously want to get the property and probably have a lot of cash and things that they can put on the table to try and make the offer look more attractive to it. But I don't think at the end of the day they're actually going to get it. So.
What do you make of the combinations? Because for the average consumer like me, I just see one big company with another big company. The combination of what we're seeing here, I mean, can you talk us through what that means and what they could offer?
I mean, if you're a consumer, yeah, sure. I mean, if you're a consumer, it's an interesting question. I bet you would probably see or feel more if Netflix gets it, because they would probably do something over time with HBO, and whether they, you know, include it in Netflix or figure out some way to keep it apart and then merge it in. And, you know, there's a big fear here about what will happen to movie theaters, and I think that's a little bit of a consideration on the Netflix side. I think you'd see less change if you're a consumer between Paramount and Warner, actually, because those are two kind of business-to-business enterprises that roll their products out through a lot of different services, and Paramount's kind of weaker in the streaming services game right now. But, you know, the real thing here, Elaine, is that Netflix has the right to match anything that Paramount brings in, and no matter how high the bidding goes, I mean, if it gets really unreasonably high, then I guess there's a chance that Paramount would eventually back out, and if their stock goes down. But I think at the end of the day, Netflix has got a signed deal and they've got an ability to match it. And I think if you're thinking about how you change a studio so that it is competitive for the next century, I actually have come around to think that the Netflix merger with Warner is a bit more transformational than just putting two studios together. So you'll probably see lots of layoffs in the latter scenario as well.
Yeah, so beyond the price, are we talking about control of global franchises, the streaming scale, and really who ultimately dominates that next era of entertainment? As you mentioned, you know, it's working toward the future. Are they thinking in that way?
Probably. I mean, look, everyone here has been in they call it the streaming wars, and it first started out with a rush to get as many subscribers as you could, and it's now been about how you can operate it more feasibly, more profitably. But they're for sure trying to compete with Netflix and Prime and Disney, and I think that's part of the thinking here. And I think, you know, that's a big part of the concern that's come from our government on the regulatory side. Like, how much power should Netflix actually have? Here in the EU, they're looking at that, not just with streaming market share, but, you know, with kind of softer cultural considerations in terms of how dominant their voice is. And I don't think any of those things are clear right now. But one thing that is clear is that Netflix has a signed deal, and they have the right to match whatever Paramount's going to throw. So at the end of the day, my betting is probably on Netflix getting it.
And Seth, for viewers, could consolidation mean fewer choices and higher prices? We're kind of already seeing that. Or could that mean that larger platforms actually deliver better content and a stronger user experience?
I'm probably going to say it's a little bit of both, I think, is probably what's actually happening, because I think you will see a more refined, intelligent approach to deal making and to the amount of money that gets spent on feature films and things that get picked up from the market. I think the big concern that a lot of us have is, there's a pretty vibrant ecosystem out here in Hollywood, and it's not just one studio makes one picture. There are properties that circulate. Studios historically have shared big pictures like Titanic, and writers, directors, and actors move around pretty freely. And so I don't think people want to see kind of one less buyer going out of the market. There's already a ton of stresses out here, from AI to labor strife to our studios kind of being pushed back a little bit. So if you think about that, maybe Netflix is in a little bit of a stronger position to kind of recreate what a studio's like going forward.
And lastly, I'm going to bring it back here to Washington for a moment. Antitrust regulators are getting more and more aggressive. What kind of scrutiny could these deals get? And what are some of the biggest concerns that you hear about here in Washington and around the world?
Yeah, it's a really tough question. I think it's the one that's kind of undervalued a little bit. They're definitely going to get scrutiny on Capitol Hill in terms of streaming market share. Whichever one, whether Paramount gets it or whether Netflix gets it, there's definitely going to be a concern. I call it monopsony for, or you're going to lose a studio if Warner's goes away, and so there'll be one less source of places for people, to sell their wares. They're writing their directorial skills, their below the line production skills as well. So I think that's a super big piece of it as well. And then, there was a Capitol Hill hearing 2 weeks ago that Netflix and Discovery were at. I don't think anyone was happy with the idea on both sides of the aisle. And what I heard from the Republicans was, a lot of content on Netflix is skewed and doesn't really serve every audience's interest. So I think that's going to be a big part of it. I know the Europeans are going to look at it, and they're vowing not to bow down, so they could actually kill it. And they usually look at pricing and privacy. So there's a ton of regulatory stuff. There's also some stuff that's come up around the board seat that Netflix has had. Some comments were just made yesterday about a Netflix director being removed. So this is going to go on for a while, and it's not a sure thing it'll happen.
All right, we'll have to see as the clock ticks down. Seth Schachner, great to have you on as always. Thank you so much for joining us from Los Angeles.
Nice to be here, Elaine.